Hey guys, welcome to this episode of The Rachel Cruze Show. And I'm so excited because today my friends Joshua and Ryan are here, aka the Minimalists. They've been here before. If you don't know them, you'll love them. They've helped over 20 million people learn how to live a meaningful life with less through their website, their books, their podcasts, and their Netflix films, which is how I actually saw you guys the very first time, the documentary. And so again, they've been here, but they're back because they always just have great stuff to talk about. So I'm really excited to talk to you guys and excited to talk about a partnership at the end of this episode.
Heck yeah.
That we've done with you guys.
Thanks for having us.
So glad you're back.
We're glad to be here.
Yeah, so great. Okay, so one of the topics you guys talk about is hoarding.
Yes.
And I feel like when you hear that word, you think of like the TLC show, you know, and all of this kind of the craziness, not just how the everyday American could be a hoarder. So let's talk about that. So how do you kind of define hoarding?
Man, so hoarding really is the inability to let go of excess stuff. Someone who can't let go of anything, that's like a clear sign of someone being a hoarder. And yes, you're right. Like we think of the TLC show and we can point and we can laugh and we can be like, oh, look at those.
They're crazy. I'm not.
Exactly. Like I'm not a hoarder.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Like when you look at the actual signs of hoarding, a level 1 hoarder, this is what it takes to be a level 1 hoarder. Light amount of clutter in several rooms and no noticeable odors. That's a level 1 hoarder.
That's level 1.
Yeah, like I was definitely a level 1 hoarder.
Okay, what are the stages?
You want to talk about, so you talked about the first stage.
Yeah.
So there's light clutter in multiple rooms,
Yes.
no noticeable odors. Ryan, I noticed a slight odor right now.
No.
I stopped wearing deodorant years ago, I'm sorry.
Let's talk about stage 2.
Okay, yeah, so stage 2 is overflowing trash cans and unclean food prep surfaces. So I know certainly I have been there with overflowing trash cans and I got a little, cutting board area where, just last night's fit, I'm like, I'm just gonna go ahead and leave it. So I certainly could consider myself a stage 2 hoarder at times.
Yes.
Yeah, and now stage 3 is you have at least one inaccessible room or unusable room.
Because of stuff.
Because it's filled with excess stuff. Yeah.
Does the garage count?
Yes, it definitely counts. So here's
That's a big one, y'all. It's
yeah.
always funny to me that I'm like we will just put junk in a garage and our like a nice car out in the driveway.
Right.
Where I'm like, shouldn't it be like the opposite?
Everything goes in the garage except what it was made for.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
I used to have a 2.5 car garage. I don't even know what that means. What is a half car? It's really just a hoarding factory, a mausoleum full of stuff. And it'd be great if those things were increasing our joy, our happiness, making our lives better, but we know the opposite. It's clutter when it gets in the way. Well, in the way of what? In the way of living a meaningful life. We have all of this stuff that's all around us because we got a lot of internal clutter as well.
Yes.
And so I was definitely a hoarder, and I think most people who are hoarders don't actually recognize that they're some level of hoarding. And it's not a bad thing. It's just recognizing that it's getting in the way and it's time to let go. We see the people on the TV shows, those are level 5 hoarders.
Yes.
And there's a significant problem. Their exits are blocked or there's like excrement around the house.
Yes.
It's easy to kind of sneer and like, oh, that's not me. But the truth is, yeah, it is me. It didn't happen overnight, right? And I may never reach that level of hoarding, but I was a stage 3 hoarder.
It's interesting because Josh was like the most well-organized hoarder I had ever seen. He had like totes and bins and containers for everything. He's
a label hoarder.
Yeah, right. Which is interesting because, a lot of hoarders, they fall on the OCD spectrum. You wouldn't think that.
Interesting.
Because when you think of like obsessive compulsive, you think of like Spartanism, people who can't hold on to things, but really it's on the same type of spectrum. So Josh, my very good OCD friend, he, boxes and bins, and then I'll never forget the magazines that he had stacked up. That was like, it was in the correct order with the month and the year, and it was
all of it.
It was incredible. It was almost pleasant to look at, but it certainly was getting in the way.
Which is so normal though, right?
Yeah,
like
it is,
like so many people watching and listening, it's like, oh yeah, that's kind of how my garage feels or my life feels, or I keep that just in case. And what I love so much about your message, like deep to the soul of it, is that we just believe that this thing or this stuff is gonna fulfill some part of my life, right?
Yeah.
And then you go on top of that, the financial side of not having the money and you're still doing it because you think this stuff is gonna make me happy. And it's just removing all of that. And I love that so much because it's the truth. It's the truth. And we have to tell ourselves or remind ourselves constantly because we live in a world, or I do, where I'm like, yeah, you still fall into the trap of, okay, if I just had 3 more of that, I'll feel safe and secure, or I'm gonna need that later. You justify it. But you guys it's like, get it out. Get out. Don't be a hoarder. Don't have clutter.
Yeah.
What you're talking about is consumerism. Consumerism is the ideology that buying something is going to make me better, happier, or more complete. But often the things incomplete us. Now, Ryan and I, as the minimalists, people will call into our podcast all the time, and they think that simply getting rid of everything is also going to make them happy. Well, that's the opposite. That's just another form of consumerism in a way. We like having stuff. It's just the appropriate amount of stuff. The things that enhance our lives, augment our lives, add value to our lives. The problem is we have so many things, it gets in the way of the things that will actually bring us joy.
Absolutely. Okay, so where are the areas around someone's house that they can kind of say, okay, I have clutter. Clutter here, clutter there. I might be a stage 1 hoarder. Are there areas?
Certainly. I mean, there's kitchen clutter, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I was going through my whole experiment I packed up everything I owned and then unpacked as I needed it. You can find that story at theminimalists.com. But yeah, I remember I had, 20 or 30 coffee mugs. and Josh is like putting some of those in a donation box. I'm like, what are you doing, man? I gotta make sure I don't unpack. He's like, are you gonna unpack 20 mugs? And like it was just, he holds up one that says like world's greatest granddad or something, It's like, but I drank coffee. Yep. So I'm like, of course I'm gonna hold it. So kitchen's a great place to start.
Kitchen's great.
Yeah, where else, Josh?
Well, I mean, any flat surface, so bathroom counters, that's the easy place because things just accumulate. Anywhere you have a flat surface, it becomes this, I call them clutter coffins.
It's inviting.
We keep
where
putting
you go to die, where the stuff goes to die. And it's just like,
and we just set it there, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this beautiful, pristine space is fully cluttered within a day, a week, a month. And so what I do is I look for any of these flat surfaces. So the bathroom is a great place to start. Another great place is the sort of bedroom, the dressers, or the nightstand. There's a lot of nightstand clutter that we have to deal with, right? So it's just, I'll just set this here. I'll just set this here. And before we know it, it's full of clutter.
Yeah. Or the junk drawer. Do you have a junk drawer?
Oh my gosh.
How many do you have?
Okay, well, you said the nightstand, and this is where I felt convicted. Because oh my gosh, I feel like we have so much to talk about. Okay, so there is something to be said, and everyone feels this, when you walk into a room or a home and there's not a lot on the counters. That's why when you show your house, like to sell it, the agents like take everything off the counter, everything off. Because when you walk in, there's just like a piece, right? Speaks to exactly what y'all talk about. When you just don't have a bunch of crap around, you walk in and you feel good. So I want that feeling, and I know that feeling because I have done what you guys teach, and I really do try to take things away. So the nightstands, I have my water bottle, my book, a lamp, and some decor stuff, whatever, and that's it. But then it starts to clutter, and some stuff it's easy to get rid of. So I'm like, oh yeah, the coffee mug from yesterday, here, an empty water bottle. My kids have stuff. But here's where I get bad, y'all, the junk drawer. The drawer under my nightstand.
It's the catch-all.
I literally will open it and I'm like, here's a random bead that my 7-year-old's probably gonna yell at me, and I'm like, here, just here, just so it can look nice, but I have issues underneath. That probably speaks to my soul too. Underneath the nightstand, but the junk drawer, and then I go through and I'm like, and it's just crap. It's just crap that builds up. And why in that split moment I don't just throw it away? I don't know. I need to catch Rachel. I need to catch myself in the moment. Why? Tell me, Joshua. Tell me, Joshua.
3 words.
Tell me.
The 3 most dangerous words in the English language, just in case. I'll just throw this in this drawer just in case. Now, what we're really saying is I don't want to deal with this right now. 100%. But we justify it in our mind by saying, you know what? Just in case, right? And so what happens is that allows us to hold on to hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of just in case items. Ryan and I came up with something called the 20/20 rule, the just in case rule. Anything you own that you're holding on to just in case you might need it someday in some non-existent hypothetical future, you can let go of it because you can replace it for less than $20 in less than 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, at first, you're like, oh my God, I don't want to go around every day spending $20 on every single... You never have to use the rule. That's the thing. You never end up replacing these things you let go of. Between the two of us, we've had to use this rule 5 times in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So it costs us about $100 to get rid of tens of thousands of things that were just in the way.
A low price to pay to get rid of all that stuff. We lived in the middle of nowhere, Montana. Like one stoplight within 1,200 square miles.
Yes.
And it still worked even in that little town.
You can find what you need.
Yeah.
That's the great thing about 2022, right? If you need it, you can find it.
That's right.
Yeah, we have moved from like a culture of ownership to a culture of access.
Yes, absolutely. It's so good. So good. Okay, so if someone's watching or listening and they're thinking, oh yeah, I'm definitely stage 1, maybe creeping up stage 2, maybe some stage 3 hoarders up there. What are like the first couple of things they can do to start this process?
First, I want to say I too is a stage 1, stage 2 hoarder, so I have some empathy for the hoarders out there. Man, the first place to start is to really ask yourself a question: how might my life be better with less? Like this is the crux of it. Like getting clear on how simplifying can make you happy, or at least make room for happiness. Maybe that's the way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It's not getting rid of stuff doesn't just make you happy, like Josh was alluding to earlier, and that's where people get caught up because they don't know why they want to get rid of. So that question really helps people get to the root of why. Now, as far as like practical first steps, like moving beyond that philosophy part of it, we got the thing called the 30-day minimalism game. You wrote about this in your book.
So good, Joel.
It's a great place to start. So the way it works is you find a friend or a family member or a mortal enemy, whoever you want. They just also need to get rid of stuff. And you agree to play this game and start on the first day of the month. And on the first day, you get rid of one thing. And then on the second day, you get rid of 2 things. And then on the third day, 3 things. And then, all right, so you get the point by now. It starts out really, really easy. My wife and I, we do this every other year, probably.
Yeah?
So I mean, it's even as one of the minimalists, this is a tool that I still use.
Yes.
So whoever makes it to the end of the month wins. And if both people make it to the end of the month, that's okay. Then both people win because they would have gotten rid of about 500 items. But you can just bet something silly like a movie, or maybe, the loser has to cook a meal for someone else. But hopefully both people make it to the end of the month and they both win. Yeah.
Rachel, when did it get difficult for you? What day were you like, oh no, day 12, and then tomorrow I have to get rid of 13 things?
Yeah, because it's been over 2 years because it was at our old house. 'Cause I remember doing it. I remember, I think I watched the documentary. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm in. It was before I even knew you guys personally, because I was like, I'm doing this. And I remember I'm such like an achiever. Then we're at day 1, I was like, oh, I'm gonna stack away for extra days. So I made a note of day 2. I already had my list of stuff I was gonna give away or throw away. I wanna say it was day 20. I made it pretty far, but I had never cleaned stuff out. We had closets, we'd been married 10 years at that point, of wedding gifts still, y'all. A closet with gifts that I walked in, I'm like, we've literally never used this random vase. And sorry, whoever gave us the vase, but I never used it. It's not even that, I don't like it. But it's that, we had that crap, y'all. All over. It was crazy. It was crazy.
Well, yeah.
And it didn't feel like I was a hoarder, or I didn't feel like I had too much stuff. I felt pretty, but then you start digging in and you open up drawers, you go under the sink. That's where my stuff, and I'm like, look, stuff that you get from a stocking. My mom's always like, you need this, you need this. And it just stacks up over the year. And you're like, what am I doing? So anyways, it's a great game, y'all. It's a great game.
Yeah, the problem is you have space to put things.
That's it too.
And the more space you have, we feel compelled to fill it.
Yes.
And it's easy to do.
For sure.
The best part is it's a free game too. So you can download the free calendar on our website. Just go to theminimalists.com/game, and it's free. You don't have to give us anything in order to play the game, and you can start playing today.
Yes, I love it. Okay, so we're kind of talking about hoarding specifically, but let's just back up a little bit. Overall, if someone's not super familiar with your message and you guys, give just kind of an overview of what it is to be a minimalist. What benefits does it give your life overall?
Oh man, what is a minimalist? We're still trying to figure that out, after 10 years. Eventually we'll figure it out. I mean, it's about living intentionally. Yeah. Josh and I for so long lived unintentional. We were climbing the corporate ladder of success. We did a really good job at that. But, as we were making really good money, we were spending even better money. We got ourselves in heaps of debt. That's really where the journey started for us, is we found ourselves just in over 6 figures worth of debt, and we were trapped. And this stressful job that we had to maintain that job to pay for the debt payments that we signed up for. And it was just kind of this vicious cycle. So minimalism, it gave us an opportunity to make room for what was actually important. So for me, when Josh first introduced the term minimalism to me, at first I'm like, dude, I don't want to own less than 50 things. That's not me.
One shirt or whatever.
Right, yeah. I don't want to be a monk. But, I found all types of people who called themselves minimalists, and they were from all walks of life. There's Leo Babauta, he's got 8 kids. There's Joshua Becker, he was a pastor with a full-time job and a house and a car. Courtney Carver, it was her and her daughter and her husband out in Salt Lake City. Just some really awesome people. And what I noticed, even though they were from all different walks of life, they all shared at least 2 things in common. They were living simple lives, and they were happy. They would call themselves minimalists. So I'm like, all right, I'm a minimalist, great. Yeah. So for me, I started with a thing called a packing party. So Josh and I decided I mentioned it a little bit earlier, we decided to pack up all my belongings as if I were moving. Yeah. And then I would unpack only the items I needed over the next 3 weeks. So this was huge for me. That's really the beginning of it. That's the beginning of the Minimalists.com. It's when I was confronted with all my things and I was really able to just get clear on what was important to me.
Yep. Well, you guys are awesome. Again, love your message. Love you guys.
You're
and
awesome.
Just everything that y'all do, because it gives peace and hope to people in a world that the message is the opposite, right? That we need more and more. And you guys just give such a peaceful message of, you're good with less. They actually have a more intentional life. So I love it. So y'all have done a fun thing with Ramsey Solutions.
We have.
We've partnered together. So y'all were kind of the catalyst of it. So I want you to kind of talk about it because I think it came from y'all's brains, but I think it's brilliant.
We've worked on a lot of philanthropic projects over the years, about 10 of them. This is our 11th. We've built orphanages. We built a nonprofit grocery co-op on the west side of Dayton, which is one of the largest food deserts in the country. And we've done things like build clean water wells and build an elementary school. And one thing that Ryan and I realized growing up, we thought we were so miserable because we didn't have money. And so we had a lot of bad habits around our money growing up. We were poor, but then when we started making money throughout our 20s, we carried those same bad habits forward and we accumulated a lot of debt. I myself had almost $500,000 worth of debt at my lowest point. And I realized that I never learned how to be responsible with money. In fact, I learned the opposite. Go out and get credit. You need a good credit score. Go into debt. You'd be dumb not to put it on 3% financing, whatever it might be, right? I got to a point where I had 14 credit cards in my wallet because that was a good thing. That's what you're supposed to do. I was saving money. No, I wasn't. I was spending money I never had, right? And so what we're trying to do is in and around our hometown of Dayton, Ohio, is we're trying to teach every middle school and high school kid the foundations of personal finance, how to be responsible with their money, how to avoid putting themselves in debt when they become adults, because it's so easy to put yourself into debt. And so we're trying to get everyone in Dayton to avoid that, and we could use your help. Ryan and I are personally financing 100 students, but we can come to you and say, hey, if you have $25, you can literally help one student, one middle school student, or $45 helps a high school student stay out of debt for the rest of their lives because they can learn about the foundations of personal finance, what it means to be debt-free, which is truly the new American dream. So if people want to contribute, they can. It's just theminimalists.com/education. And all of that money, 100% of it, goes to teaching these kids about their finances.
Which is so huge. I mean, we're all on the education piece too, because it's like, if you learn it, you have that forever. You have those tools forever, no matter what season of life you're in, no matter what hardship or celebratory season you're in, you know the basics. And when you stick to it consistently over the course of time, it's great. And I talk to so many people that are like, I wish I knew this when I was 17. If I only had known this at 18, my whole life would look different. Even mathematically, with just investing, right? Just saving. And the giving you miss out on when you live paycheck to paycheck and there's not margin, the joy of that giving. And I mean, all of it, right? It's so huge. So I love that. I love that we get to partner with you guys and y'all are incredible. So one thing I always ask my guests on the show is, what's one thing you're doing with money right now that's creating a life that you love?
Giving is living, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Josh and I look for any opportunity to give, and that's, really the reason behind us partnering with you guys is not just us giving, but teaching our audience how to give too. Because once you feel like you have enough, and that's what I think minimalism helps people do, that's when we start to look externally. So certainly, like just doing these philanthropic projects is really, it's an honor.
Okay, how about you, Joshua?
Coffee.
Are you like you enjoy a good cup of coffee?
See, I don't have any debt, so I can spend money on good coffee, whether it's making great coffee at home or going to a local coffee shop who's passionate about what they do and having that community interaction. Great coffee makes for great conversations.
So good. Makes the heart good, too. Get you a little caffeine boost. It's great. That's awesome. Okay, so where can everyone find you guys?
Oh, you can just go to theminimalists.com and the podcast and the books and the documentaries. It's all there.
So great. All right, you guys.
Thanks so much.
Make sure to check out everything that they're doing. And remember to take control of your money and create a life you love.